In my article, De-unionization and the Wages of Essential Workers, I argue that the average wages of workers who are now considered essential have not kept pace with overall wage growth from 1983 on in the United States. And so I start by adopting two commonly used definitions of essential industries and then categorizing workers as belonging to either essential or non-essential sectors from 1983 to 2018. I then look at the difference in the average wages of the two sectors. And what I find is that in 2018, essential workers made less on average than non-essential workers. And that's been documented in other studies. However, that hasn't always been the case. In 1983, essential workers made more on average, and there's a clear systematic downward trend in the relative wage. And that pattern persists if you look at a different sample, or if you look at a different definition of essential industries. And so I argue that this downward trend begs the question, if essential industries have lower wages in 2018, why haven't they always had lower wages? Why is there a systematic downward trend? And the hypothesis of my paper is that uneven deunionization in the two sectors can help explain this downward trend. And what I mean is that both sectors have experienced deunionization since the early 80s. However, the decline in union coverage and union membership has been a bit faster among essential industries than non-essential industries. And so if you graph the difference in the union membership and union coverage rates in the two sectors, there's a downward trend there as well. So I argue that the uneven deunionization of essential industries can help explain the decline in their relative wages. I also look at the effect of union coverage on wage dispersion. And so I note that even though the essential industries have deunionized faster than the non-essential industries, they maintain higher union coverage rates throughout the entire sample period. And essential industries also have lower wage dispersion throughout the entire sample period. So I hypothesize that the lower union membership and union coverage rates in non-essential industries can help explain their higher wage dispersion. My research has implications for both average wages and wage dispersion in essential and non-essential industries. However, the main takeaway, I think, is that deunionization has affected essential industries disproportionately. And so why does that matter? Well, first it matters because labor unions have recently been trying to organize essential sectors of the economy, from food to healthcare to transportation and warehousing, with mixed success. And I argue that whether those efforts succeed or fail has implications for both the average wages of essential workers and also wage dispersion among essential workers. I also think that the paper matters because it provides some historical context to other studies that have tried to document wage patterns for essential and frontline workers in more recent periods. And so as far as the question, where next, I think the next step would be to explain why essential industries have experienced uneven deunionization? Why have they deunionized faster than non-essential sectors? My paper doesn't address that question. It just takes that as a fact and uses it to explain wage patterns. But there's a legitimate question as to why. Why have essential industries experienced more rapid deunionization? And in my paper, I suggest a few possible ideas on why that might be, but I don't go into it in much detail. So to summarize, the main implication of the paper is that reversing the trend towards deunionization of essential industries is critical for protecting wage growth among workers whose labor is essential to our health and safety.